Welcome to another weekend here on the platform where we look at different sides to happenings in the polity. My name is Samuel Mashe. It has been a riveting week, especially with the gale of defections in the National Assembly that rattled the dominance of the APC, the All Progressives Congress. The national chairman of the party, Adams Oshiomhole, is already ready to take on ministers in the President Buhari's cabinet. The ministers, he feels, are working contrary to the party's manifesto. Again, bandits are having a field day. Policemen are even their latest victims. Well, my column this week is titled Ghosts of Plunder.
We cannot live a lie and expect the truth not to hunt us down. We are living one now, and it refers to the hunting barbarism of the herdsman. We make them seem like supermen, and so we go supine. They brandish weapons we cannot match. They move around like spirits, spectral entities that we cannot see. We make them ghosts of plunder. They slaughter men, women, and children, and we only mourn afterwards with rhetoric of surrender. They throw flames that raise thatched houses, and our IDP camps swell and swell. Their animals gorge on our farms, and we become spectators of our own misery. They growl about our homesteads, and our voices are stuck in our throats. They rape our women, and we are impotent. And some say the system as it is works for Nigerians, and they expect us to accept. That is the tragedy that the headsman has foisted on us. Yet the irony lies in the line that the federal government has projected, that we should not restructure the country. The argument is that the Nigeria will work as it is. It means the center remains pampered and cash-rich to the detriment of the states. The geographical physiognomy of Nigeria will be out of joint. The states, the towns, the villages, the hamlets should be run as it is, but the headsman has even changed that very structure that President Buhari, Vice President Osinbajo, and others have glorified so naively. For the past 3 years at least, the headsman has skewed what is left of the so-called federal arrangement. They have been attacking and displacing people from their towns and villages. The headsmen are taking over people's lands and occupying them. We have seen this especially in the Moreda's hotspots, Benue, Taraba, Plateau, Kaduna, Adamawa, Zamfara. We saw it even in Sokoto State as the new terrain of prey. They are not acting like the Jukuns of old, the warlike tribe that launched forays into fragile kingdoms, plundered but returned home with spoils. These men conquer and occupy. Those who do not occupy return to the forest. So if they have elections today, the IDPs become new blots on our electoral maps. Who votes in their villages and hamlets? The headsmen? If the headsmen don't vote, at least the territories have been lost in the electoral equation. If people who occupy 10 villages converge on an IDP camp, shall we re-register them for elections? What of the leverage of their abandoned homes in the geopolitical calculus in state and national polls? Of course, it is virtually obliterated. 10 villages will become one IDP camp, one unit. Gradually, the headsman will become accepted as owners of those displaced villages, and they could rename them and own them as their own property. So, they begin as thieves and murderers. They are accepted as legitimate owners of other people's towns and villages. Eventually, INEC enfranchises them. They will elect officers to National Assembly, and their bigwigs stake their rights as governors. This is restructuring in reverse, or destructuring. The ghosts materialize as landowners. They will own the crops, turn the churches into homes, knock out the pews, pulpits and vestries, overthrow the languages and customs and impose their own. A new cartography is born. So, is the federal structure sustainable as it is? This is the implication, and no one should expect that the owners of the land will not rage and plot their return. It is a different matter if they arrive as legitimate migrants and occupy a tract of territory legitimately allotted to them by the local authority. Yet we know that the indigenous settler crisis takes its roots from the Babangida years, when he returned a settler colony in Plateau into an autonomous local government area with concomitant political powers. The elevation from settler to proprietary rights has lit the tinder of unrest since then. The verdant peace of Jos yielded to the ominous clouds of fear and loathing in that temperate city. This can only be traced to the crisis of legitimacy. In a stern and unrelenting voice, Governor Seriake Dixon of Bayelsa State has warned Buhari of the implication of a skewed federal system and its implication for Nigerian security. He says, "It is very clear that Nigeria's lopsided federal system and over-centralization of security powers and the politicization of security by several agencies are a major cause of instability and poses a threat to national stability." He waxed poetic when he spoke of the politics of insecurity and the insecurity of politics. Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai has said that these men's hiding places are the forests in the north. So we have two major places where these people hide, either in the displaced villages and towns or in the forest. If we know that, why are we dithering? There are quite a number of forests around the areas they operate. They are not what the anonymous poet described when he wrote, "Into the forest I go to lose my mind and find my soul." But these men have a soul to find. Why not conduct reconnaissance, deploy drones and soldiers, and level the goons? If the goons are mobile, we know the forests are not like the forest in Macbeth, moves to the impostor king. That's why I asserted recently that it is either the government is not serious or it is incompetent, or both. We are in a state of war, and as Governor Dixon noted, this is the worst. We have seen the civil war, yet we are acting like Gowon did in the early days of the Nigerian Civil War when he dismissed the rumbling of Biafra as a mere police action until Ojukwu bared the Igbo fangs. Or in the early days of the Second World War when the Allies still trusted in Hitler's humanity and some people called it the phony war. They learned the hard way when Blitzkrieg growled to town with blood trails, pockmarks, and fallen soldiers. Some churches have begun a 7-day prayer and fasting to stop this. We sometimes disturb God with our folly. The Bible says to obey is better than sacrifice. This sacrifice of the churches would be gratuitous if the government obeyed the Constitution and did the right things, which are within its powers. If the soldiers comb out these goons, arrest and quickly prosecute them in nimble courts, no prayer will be invoked. Dixon said, if the people are under attack by gunmen, that is more reason why the security forces and the president as the commander-in-chief of the armed forces should lead to repel the attacks. The next time would be an illusion, but we vex our spirits. The prayer and fasting call reminds me of my encounter with a young man in Rhode Island, United States, when I attended one of Chinua Achebe's colloquiums at Brown University. The young man, an undergraduate then, said when he was in Nigeria, his mother always urged him to pray over everything he did. He always followed her advice. However, since his American sojourn, he had never prayed and he had never had any problems. The US leaders made such prayers unnecessary because they did the basic things. Apostle Peter said, God has given us the things that pertains to life and godliness. If we do well, they will redound in our glory and virtue, because our government has not manifested the virtue. Glory is eluding us.
Welcome to the news mention. Analyst Bola Oba, of course, the Red Cap Chief, is with us today to help us through some of the very naughty issues of the week. You're welcome.
Always a pleasure to be on your side.
Well, where do we start? The defections. Expected, not expected? What do you say?
No reasonable human being should be surprised that the whore that a man took for a wife on the dance floor of a masquerade 1 year ago has decided to leave the man on the same dance floor of the same masquerade
for another man,
for another lover. It's not quite shocking to some of us. We'd always known that for reasons or for pendulum swinging from the selfish interest of the defectees or defectors to the fact that the party was badly managed for almost 4 years, to the fact that the president and the leadership generally was a bit laid back for so long, it was almost inevitable about a year and a half ago to speculate
that this was going to happen.
That some
kind of rupture
was going to happen. I was telling somebody yesterday that the original candidate of preference for Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu to emerge as the president of the Senate was actually Akume. When he got to know that the president would prefer Lawan, he took on with an evangelistic fervor
the candidacy of Lawan.
The candidacy of Lawan. Now, Saraki, feeling betrayed and left out, had to go and covenant, clandestinely with the PDP, with the enemy.
Yes.
Now, when Saraki, people must be a bit fair to Saraki. When Saraki emerged as the president of the Senate through a badly managed, not because of the people who really wanted to help the president, but because of the laid-back, lackadaisical disposition of the president, when Saraki ultimately emerged. Now, immediately after Saraki emerged, Saraki also wanted a form of rapprochement. The presidency was kept
hunkering down.
Those who could help the president to manage the political dynamics of it were even, look, let's be very honest with ourselves.
No, that's one aspect of it. We are saying now that the president, presiding over a political party and seeing that the party is witnessing a gale of defection, must take primary responsibility for what seems to be commotion in his party.
Oh, inevitably.
Inevitably.
Especially in the presidential system of government.
Exactly, where the power of the president is very strong. And where he should have done that. But the president was not governing the country or governing the party in the way he should have to bring different parts of the party together.
And
but rather, he was playing divide and rule.
No.
There's no way in a presidency that once you become the president of the country, you become the head of the party. That is how it works.
Automatically.
Because the party
in the presidential system of government is a bit laid back, unlike in the parliamentary system of government.
It's a modern manifestation of monarchy, of democratic manifestation
I tell people,
of monarchy.
I've even said it on this program before, that the president of Nigeria especially is a tenured monarch.
Yes.
If you look, let me give you.
That's why. But the point though is that they have what is called, even in presidential system, what is called the deep state, which is an expression showing that if the institution is ingrained and strong within the government itself, the president can only go so far, and that is the problem that Trump is facing. But in our own system, I'm coming somewhere. But in our own system where the institutions have not been well cemented, it means that the president is very, very strong in the system because we have a weak state.
Let me also give you one reason why you should know that the president of Nigeria is ultra powerful. All institutions and agencies of coercion in Nigeria today are constitutionally unstable to the president. From the armed services, to the intelligence services, to the conventional or orthodox police, to indeed, to, when I was a boy in Mushi, we used to call them Guguru defense, civil defense. Every institution of coercion unstable. In America, that is not so.
Even because we don't have a state police, a president will have to decide from the center whether to summon any arm of the armed force to a village in Yobe. You know what it is? Now, the other point of it too is that, given the president his own blame, Saraki is not out of blame.
Before you go to Saraki.
No, wait.
Before you go to Saraki,
yes.
Before you go to Saraki, there was a second strategic error that people tend to gloss over. The APC, as a political machinery, political party, was badly managed under the former chairman.
Oh, you're good, yes. But
I'm coming.
when you are talking about, you are not talking about Saraki.
No, before.
And this man.
No, yes. I will get to Saraki.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to exonerate Saraki.
Yes.
But you know what? A more engaging, a more creative, a more articulate party chairman could have done a lot to actually reconcile
the bench
between the legislature and the executive. But you know what? I sit here not blaming Oyegun because the man entered the civil service as a graduate from about his mid-20s, late 20s, spent about 30-something years in the civil service, rose to become permanent secretary, became governor of Edo State when civilization was still behind, and did practically nothing for Edo. You know what?
It was there for a short time. They have time to even grow.
In the hierarchical this
yes.
Then came, and you know what? The longest part of his life has been his years in the civil service. He was taking a cue at the body language of the president. He wasn't saying no. He wasn't saying no.
He wasn't saying yes. He wasn't saying no. So he went to Saraki, who said, yes, move this way. And he moved. And he was incentivized.
And Saraki, you must
That's
remember.
why you must come now to Saraki.
Yeah, you're coming to Saraki now. And Saraki, given the fact that he was naturally hot, NPDP, whichever way you look at it, and indeed Saraki himself, was a major contributor also to the success of APC. Mm-hmm. Now, even before the success of APC was constitutionally crystallized.
Let us not exaggerate the contribution of...
you cannot explain away...
No, let us not exaggerate his contribution. Saraki, today, yesterday, tomorrow, is within the four walls. His contribution within the four walls of Kwara State.
A man genuinely believed that he was privy or one of the contributors to a success story. Mm. If you need to let him know that you had a better plan or you had somebody you could work better with, communication could have done it. It behoved the president then to have had a private session.
We've talked about the president and his failure. That's part of his failure, that he couldn't bring people together and say, look, I don't really want you, let us talk. This is the one I want. He didn't do that. That's the failure of the president. We are through with what the failure of the president is.
And the guy was hot, and the guy was hot. And when he emerged as the president of the Senate, for a while, Saraki was still leaving that back door ajar for a form of reconciliation.
No, you know what you call that kind of back door? After I've given you a punch in the face, then I'm telling you that, don't worry, we cannot be friends. No, don't bring that leg to me. You're not seeing the machinations of Oloye, who I call Eleyimi. Eleyimi is about to get the Balogun treatment now. That's where we're going now.
I always use the prism of realpolitik.
Well, hold on.
I always use the prism of realpolitik to analyze politics.
Let us move.
It's not about idealism. is about, you
Realism.
know what, human nature.
No, but you
flesh
seem,
and blood, real politics.
You seem to be giving Oloye, who I call...
I'm not particularly enamored.
You're enamored of him.
No.
That's what you're showing.
No.
Anyway, let's move.
But you know that.
Now.
But you know that
let's move
it's
on.
not
I don't
one.
know that.
Oh.
Let's move
But
on to the
it's not impossible that you also have a visceral. You have a visceral loathing of him.
A visceral? Not visceral.
Okay, I like that. That's one thing I like about you.
It's ideological.
That's one thing I like about you. You own up to your opinion.
It's ideological. It's ideological.
You have a visceral loathing of him.
No, not visceral, but it's ideological. Now let's move to the calculus. Let's move to the calculus. Now, the calculation was that, according to Senator Abu, he said these people thought that they would have a majority when this so-called GALE. Some people will not even call it GALE because it didn't really sweep IPCC has, up to this time we are talking, the majority
in the two
chambers. What scenario do you see going forward? Because what we see here is that the positions of Senate President and Speaker are now hanging in the balance.
You know, these guys are buyable. They wear price tags. Saraki is a master of the game of using. I am sitting here now thinking that for a Senate where...
Well, that is one scenario. You cannot be too sure it happened.
For a Senate...
Is he going to do that to Wamako and Alero?
For a Senate where the deputy president of that Senate emerged from the minority party and stayed...
That was a game he played.
And stayed for 3 years and still in office.
He's still in office, yes.
My brother, with due respect, it will be a bit...
I don't want your respect, just say the fact.
It will be a bit too idealistic to assume that...
I'm not assuming. I'm asking you what's at stake.
That the torturing majority...
You are talking as if you are prophesying. I'm not prophesying. You are saying that for certainty...
I'm using antecedents. I'm using antecedents to build a linear logic.
Is going to carry more of these people who visited the president. Is going to carry them and get a PDP majority. That's what you are saying.
I
want to be very clear. We don't have time. I want to be very clear. Is that what you are saying?
Amongst those who visited the president, I saw a Sonny.
Shehu Sani.
I saw a Shehu Sani.
Yes.
Oh, from among those who visited the president, yes. I saw a Lane Tejoso who said he was out.
I'm back, sir.
Oh,
your son is back.
Oh,
that's what he said.
The son never knew the child of whom he was before he left.
Well, that's the same thing with the prodigal son.
Oh, okay, fantastic. The degree of prodigality will be measured.
We all see how it goes out. But you are talking with certainty.
It will be clear very soon. You know what? I would rather prefer...
Well, we have to move to another topic.
I would rather prefer...
The statement by...
your idealism is Akulian.
By the minister, what do you call it? APC chairman, Adams Oshiomhole, who has said that ministers who do not constitute boards will be fired. Does he have the powers?
He does not. In the kind of government, in a presidential
system, does he have the influence?
He has the power to expel members of the party. You must realize that.
Yes.
He does not have the power to remove a cabinet minister.
He doesn't.
Because in a presidential system of government, the president is the appointer, and it is the prerogative of the president to keep or sack anybody. It's just that this president is a very generous employer, ultra generous. What could Oshiomhole have done? He inherited a position where the former holder was as laid back as the president himself. And to be honest with you, the party and the government of the party, the two have drifted thus far.
Yes.
There must be a degree of melodrama.
Discipline. A melodrama to bring the discipline.
To bring the discipline.
I agree.
But ironically, he does not have the powers he would wish he had.
But he's trying to use the symbolism of his power.
He's trying to use the symbolism or the imagery.
Yes, to create a kind of moral aura. And impose it on the president. Yes.
And even get some ministers, some laggardly ministers.
To stand up and sit up.
But ironically, I am not seeing a choreography that would have been necessary.
It looks like a lone voice.
And I was saying the following day, I was expecting to see some things. I was saying it may not be impossible that a Shomole will be tolerated for the re-election of the president until the re-election of the president.
And then they will start going after him.
And the daggers will come.
Okay. Thank you very much. We've had a very, very feisty moment with Bola Oba. No, I agree with him.
You made it feisty today.
I agree with him most of the time, but
you made it feisty today.
Well, the big talk is with M.A. Abubakar, the governor of Bauchi State, talking Bauchi, the politics and governance. How would you assess, about three years plus now as governor of Bauchi State, how would you assess your stewardship so far, in brief?
Well, I think I'll say so far so good. But that is not to say that it has been a bed of roses. I knew outrightly that it wasn't going to be easy. The state in which we found the state when we took over gave us a lot of concern. But because the aim right from the beginning was to go in there and try to rescue the state and bring it out of the doldrums. So I must say so far so good. We started with the civil service, which is the bedrock. You know, no matter what kind of ideas you have, developmental ideas as a governor, if the civil service is not fine-tuned towards seeing to the actualization of your ideas, you'll be a non-starter. Yeah. So when we took over, the civil service was in tatters. We had a total of 60 permanent secretaries in a small state like Bauchi. We had 26 ministries in a state where you have 20 local governments. So we thought we should start with the civil service.
What was the staff? Over 100,000?
Oh, 105,000. That is what we are said to have inherited.
Yes.
So we started with rejigging the civil service through the help of a consultant that we engaged, headed by someone who was a secretary to the government of the state, the former Bauchi state, when it had Gombe with it. Yeah. You know, and they took time, went through, and then they gave us advice. We adopted a policy that was adopted once by the federal government, the tenure system for the permanent secretaries and directors. And this was because I didn't want to, by the stroke of the pen, relieve people of their employment, no matter what. So I used this system of tenure to get quite a number of the permanent secretaries to take early retirement, and quite a number of the directors. And within a short period of time, we were able to fine-tune the civil service. In addition to that, we struggled to ensure that payment of salaries is history. The lack of payment of salary was history. When we took over when civil servants were being owed 4 months' salaries. They were in fact on strike. I called them back with a promise that I was going to address that issue. And with the help of Mr. President, the now famous or infamous bailout, all right, was given, and we made sure we utilized every kobo of the bailout towards payment of salaries. That has stabilized, because if you consider today, the last Federation account meeting was inconclusive. Many states have not been able to pay salaries. Yes. But Bauchi State, we have since paid salaries. So we have made the payment of salary a non-issue. It's a routine that come the end of the month, we do it. So we took care of the civil service, and thereafter we now started addressing sectors. And with the help of the World Bank, using a project they call CEPIP, we are able to now encourage teachers. When we post you to the rural areas, you have a special allowance. So the key areas of science, STEM subjects, we have now been encouraging people to go to the rural areas to teach them, because they now know that they are going to be paid special allowances. We also address the issue of school-based management committees. These are key because they operate to ensure that the schools are run properly. They take care of the welfare of the teachers. They take care of even the buildings and the equipment. In the past, nobody cared. You build a school, you equip a school, and then overnight somebody will come, turn a truck around and cut away everything. Nobody will care because they thought this was government property, not their own. But with the rejigging of the school-based management committees, that is a thing of the past. We have engendered ownership, a feeling of ownership in the school-based management committees, and they are assisting. With the support of UNESCO, we have started a system of deploying technology in order to educate the out-of-school children.
Coming to that.
Yes, a lot of talk is being had about the out-of-school children, and particularly the girl child.
They are my juries.
Yes, and a good percentage of that is found in the northeastern sub-region and in Bauchi State. So for that reason, we have made it a point to try and get these people back, not necessarily to formal schools, because some of them are past it, but we can educate them via the use of technology. Tablets have been developed for Bauchi State, abiding by the curriculum of the government. And we have deployed so far 5,000 of those tablets around the state. And we are continuing, it's a continuous process. We have had the Boko Haram problem in the northeastern sub-region. And I've always said it to whoever wants to hear that the key factors that led to Boko Haram are first and foremost lack of education, and secondly, poverty. And unless we address these issues, there is no way we can put a stop to issues like Boko Haram. We may be able to rout Boko Haram, but another crazy person may come up with another crazy idea, call it a different name, and then he will have this army of unemployed youth to recruit into his crazy idea.
Just as we've had Al-Qaeda, we've had Daesh,
right.
Part of the same.
So I said what we need to do is to identify for ourselves as a state areas of comparative advantage that we will pursue. And for Bauchi State, we decided to pick 3 areas. 1, agriculture. Agriculture, for the simple reason that Bauchi State occupies 1/5 of the total landmass of Nigeria. So we have ample arable land that is lying fallow. We have ample irrigable land that is lying fallow. Plus the fact that 80 to 85% of our people are engaged in one form of agriculture or the other. So we have to find a way of turning agriculture into a business for both these 80% and then for the state. For the 80%, we discovered that agriculture is being practiced the same way we have inherited it from our forefathers. And that way, agriculture will remain subsistence. You will only grow what you need to sustain you. And in most cases, it doesn't even sustain you up to the end of the year. All right? So there has to be a way out of this. And the way out is by mechanizing agriculture and by deploying technology to agriculture. I have visited Morocco, the Kingdom of Morocco, on the invitation of a company called OCP Africa. OCP Africa is the largest phosphate producer in the world, and therefore the largest phosphate-based fertilizer producer in the world. So what I did when I went to see them was to call on them to come and look at our fertilizer blending plant. We have a fertilizer blending plant in Bauchi State. Look at it with a view to expanding it and modernizing it. And then to assist us by deploying technology to farming. I have started a program called Agri-Entrepreneurship Program. In this program, at the initial stage, we have signed on to bring in 500 tractors. These 500 tractors, if you take account from the time Bauchi State was created in 1976 to date, the governments of succeeding governments have not acquired up to 500 tractors. But at one go, we are introducing 500 tractors. Already, on signing of the agreement, we took delivery of 140 of these tractors, and the delivery is continuing.
Are they in phases then? You are going to get them in phases?
In phases,
yeah.
Because they have been manufactured in, in Europe,
yeah.
And when they manufacture them, they transport them in containers and brought to Bauchi directly, where they will now be offloaded and coupled.
Now, you've gone a lot, and you can go on and on. Tourism, I know you have something to do with that.
Yeah.
But I want us to go back to the beginning. You inherited a mess, you said, and I also learned that the finances were really poor, and that's why they couldn't pay salaries and so on. I understand it's also created some political problems as well. Can you go through that?
It is
because because before you became, when you were governor-elect, your political associates, those in the National Assembly and also all of them, wanted something from you. And without knowing what was in the coffers, you made some promises. And then when it came down to brass tacks, it became impossible. Can you talk through that?
Well, to begin with, I did not make any promises. People allege that I made promises, but okay. I never promise what I do not have. Without delving into the finances of government at that time, there was no way I could have made any promises to anybody. But it is true that the situation we found was very, very bad. And with the alleged 105,000 staff we have inherited, that has translated from the onset to a salary bill of 5.1 billion and growing. Yes. All right? And it's a matter of common knowledge. When anybody wants, they can go to the website of the Federal Ministry of Finance. They can download the results of the FAQ that we have had from June 2015 to date, for them to determine for themselves how much Bauchi State government has been taking. You will now see clearly that the few months where Bauchi State got anything over and above the 5.1 billion naira needed to pay salaries could be counted on the tips of your fingers. All right? So there was a falling out, which is normal in politics, between myself and some of the members of the National Assembly. And
principally the Speaker.
Principally the Speaker, yes. But the way of politics and the fact that I am the leader of the party in the state.
Yes.
I bear the brunt. When it's good, probably it's me that will enjoy it. When it's bad, it's me that will bear the brunt. I have made forays. I have run from pillar to post, trying to engender peace in the party. And I thank God, as things stand now. When we started initially, only 3 out of the 12 members of the House of Representatives were with me. Today, only 3 are not with me.
Was there a process of reconciliation, or it happened by attrition?
No.
It happened by attrition?
No. It was a reconciliation on my part. I have done everything under the sun to reconcile. Like I said, the buck stops on my table in Bauchi State. So I needed to bring everything on stream to ensure that my party is operating on solid grounds.
What's your relationship now with the Speaker?
The Speaker is a son of Bauchi State, and he's also the #4 citizen in Nigeria.
Yes.
We accord him that respect.
Yeah, but you've not answered. What's the relationship now? Are you guys cordial, or you're just correct?
We are cordial.
Cordial.
When he sees me, he calls me his elder brother. In recent pictures of us at the Supreme Court will tend to show that we are cordial.
Now, the other issue that came up in the press recently was the resignation of your deputy. Some people said, was there some tension? And the impression you gave was that there was no tension. The man just wanted to move on to greater, bigger things, whatever that bigger thing was. But some people said, well, the Green Party of Nigeria came out with a press release and said, oh, you didn't give him free hand to operate, that's why I left.
You see, political parties will always make such comments. But the most important thing is the most beautiful system of government is a constitutional democracy, especially the type with a written constitution like our own. All the parameters are defined by the constitution. The roles and the functions of every public office is defined in the constitution. And so the issue of not giving anybody free hand to operate is a non-issue whatsoever. My deputy at the onset was the Commissioner of Education. Education is the largest, largest and the most critical part of the administration, to which we have been given the largest share of the budget from inception to date.
Given like 16%, right?
Yes,
yeah,
20%.
20%.
Yes, it is health that I have been given 16%.
Okay.
The Abuja declaration is 15%. So I've been given over and above Abuja declaration. Okay. So he headed the Ministry of Education until when I reshuffled the cabinet, and he's an engineer. And I thought with the giant strides we are making in infrastructural development, we opened up a lot of constructions all over the state, both in urban and in rural areas. I needed somebody to oversee that ministry. So I transferred him to the Ministry of Works, you know, so another big ministry to which. So the issue of anything to do with tension or not giving him a free hand to operate is not true. My deputy, as he will attest, or he has attested to himself, was about the most pampered of the deputies in Nigeria. He said so himself.
Yes.
And if you saw the letter he wrote,
Well, he didn't accuse you in anything.
The final paragraph, he said he was going to remain loyal to his leader and his elder brother. You know, and from that time to now, we have been interacting. He has been sending me messages, all right, whenever there was any development in the state, you know, or positive or otherwise, you'll send a message. And I have assured him that he has a place in the government of the state.
Some people are still baffled why he resigned. Why is it so?
I think that question is best answered by him. I know.
Maybe a health problem or family issues.
Well, I wouldn't want to venture. I think since he's alive, I think he's the best person to answer this question. But bottom line, there was no problem.
The issue that also really bothers me is the issue of the girl child. And I've read about your interventions a couple of times about this issue of girl child. You even spoke about it, not just with regards to Bauchi State, but about the North. There was a statistic that came out that said that of all the countries in the world, Nigeria is the highest in out-of-school children, and that about 50, a great percentage of them were from the north. And the issue of girl child and Nigeria, it must be a very serious issue to handle. You cannot finish this, you cannot tackle all of this in 8 years because it's a multi-generational issue. What specifically have you done with regard to girl child? Because it doesn't have to do with just building school. It also has to do with attitudes, issue of parents and so on.
Well, it is true that this is an issue that bothers the government of Bauchi State, particularly. And when we took over, we inherited a program that was being driven by the World Bank with counterpart from the state called the conditional cash transfer. This targets the poor families in the rural areas, the poorest families, so to speak. There was a survey that was done by renowned consultants to identify these kind of families. A stipend is given to these families monthly to encourage them to do one of two things: either avail themselves of medical assistance, which in the past was not the case, or encourage their children, particularly girls, to go to school and remain in school, because the problem is multifaceted. In a lot of cases, you discover that these children, the girl child will be sent to school, but after basic education, they seem to disappear.
Yes.
You look for them, they will not be there.
Yes.
At the senior secondary school stage. So we had to address this issue by targeting the parents themselves. And we were religiously paying our counterparts. And it was working. So later on, the federal government of Nigeria now took over.
The feeding program?
No, not the feeding. First and foremost, the conditional cash transfer. When the federal government was taking over, they relieved the states of the counterpart aspect. But then every state was now asked to give an additional condition that will be attached to this conditional cash transfer. And the condition I picked in my state is education of the girl child, because it is bothering us. So now you have an incentive that is given to the families. At the end of the month, they get a stipend of 10,000 naira to ensure that they send their girl child to school. And it's working wonders. The second thing is the school feeding.
The monitoring.
Yeah.
It's one thing for you to give them the child. How do you monitor?
It's the federal government of Nigeria that is monitoring, and they have a well-oiled system of monitoring these.
You know that I gave you 10,000 and your child comes to school. Yeah.
They are monitoring and they are doing very well. Well, of course, with the assistance of the state. All the programs of the federal government, the social safety programs of the federal government, we have keyed into, and we have done that very, very well.
Including school feeding.
Including school feeding. We are one of the best states. We were not one of the first to start. If you recall the NPower program, when it came about, we were the first state, the number one state in the north to register 57,000 plus people. And this was in a state where you could only access the internet in about 6 out of the 20 local governments. But when I realized that, I took it upon myself. I was busing these young children to go and register, to get access to the internet and register. So all the programs we have latched onto, and we are doing very well. The school feeding program has also helped in getting children back to school. You know, now, in fact, the problem is that of the facilities, providing the facilities of the increased number
to meet up
of
the
children
capacity.
to meet up, yes, the capacity. So, and
We had this situation in Kaduna where there was school feeding introduced.
Yes.
Once the children had finished eating, they
They'll
left
go.
school.
In our own case, we are monitoring this very, very well. The focal person of the social safety programs of the federal government is a young man, a graduate of about 3 years, that I handpicked by chance, and I made him the focal person. And he's doing wonders, you know, monitoring this and ensuring that everything is done properly. And the federal government of Nigeria is very, very happy with the way we are going in Bauchi State.
Okay. Now, you've said a lot about the agriculture and the land mass and everything. It means that, on paper, Bauchi should never be poor.
Yeah.
Because you have the resources and so on. It means that you have a task to set a template. You met a mess. You've been doing these facilities, schools, using technology and so on. How do you now convert this to wealth?
One of the ways of doing this is, like I said, the improvement of agriculture and turning it into a business by deploying technology and then deploying the know-how to the average farmer. And this we are doing through the school lab program and then the Agri-Booster program that we are going to commence with the help of OCP. Okay. And then we have at the onset introduced 2 bills in the House of Assembly which have since been passed into law. The PPP law is there. And then the Bauchi State Investment Promotion Agency law is there. What these 2 laws do to us is that the first one will define the parameters. Just before we commence this program, I just witnessed the signing of an MOU. And this is because the parameters for engagement with anybody who wishes to come in and invest in Bauchi State are defined in the PPP law. In addition to that, the Investment Promotion Agency is a one-stop shop for anybody who wants to do business with Bauchi State. When you come in, all you need to do is to go to the agency. Whatever you need to be done for you will be done. You don't need to go to the Ministry of Finance to obtain any permit. You don't need to go to the Ministry of Lands to obtain land. And we have reformed our land management system. We are computerizing. We haven't completed the geographic information system, but it's in advanced stages of completion. And I have extricated that aspect from the Ministry of Lands. I have made it a bureau under the Governor's office so that I can be watching them closely. So these 2 things are helping in turning whatever we have been doing in the past as routine into very, very serious business. There are other areas of comparative advantage that I have not spoken about. Solid minerals, for example.
Yes.
Whatever there is as solid mineral is found in one part of Bauchi State or the other.
In fact, the whole of the country,
Starting
every
from,
local government has a mineral.
Has a mineral. In Bauchi State, we have, starting from hydrocarbons. Those are the tip, oil and gas. We have. And we have coal, we have iron ore.
Well, the other issue is security. Under your watch, we have not seen much of the Boko Haram thing, but it used to be, it's still in the Northeast. It used to be part of the story. What has happened within SPL? We see here of onslaughts in Yobe and some other states.
And well, what I usually do to this kind of question is to give a very cautious response. Cautious in the sense that I first and foremost thank the Almighty because I believe a superior being somewhere is guiding our actions. And then secondly, I thank the vigilance of the security agencies operating within the state and the collaboration between them and the state government. We have a fantastic relationship with all the security agencies working within the state. We give all the assistance we can to ensure that they work smoothly. And as a result of that, we have enjoyed relative and comparative peace from the time I've taken over to date. There hasn't been any activity. And you know, if you look at Bauchi State, by the time you are going northwards, as you leave, let's say Abuja, you're going northwards. The moment you leave Bauchi State, that is when the arid areas will begin to show. So in Bauchi, you have a lot of forests. But that notwithstanding, all the problems that you hear...
The encouragement is still coming.
It's coming. We must do something to stop that. That is another subject. But the forests now give breeding grounds to all the bad elements in the society. But in our own case, we have succeeded in routing them. The moment they come, we route them. We receive a lot of visitors from Zamfara and the other places. When they come in, what we do is to quietly get them round and then profile them. When we profile them, if they are good citizens of Zamfara State who are on their lawful path to graze their cattle, there is no problem. But where the Zamfara people are not able to vouch for them, then we take them back to where they come from. So this is one of the systems we have been quietly utilizing in taking care of security problems.
Thank you very much. Well, we have had His Excellency Abubakar. It's been a very articulate session with him. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for being
welcome.
This.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching the program today. You can catch up with me in my published columns and the articles on my website, www.samomashaye.com. Also follow me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @SamOmashaye. Enjoy the rest of your day, and until next time, be good.